David, Emma, and Olivia were lifelong friends, with an insatiable thirst for adventure. One crisp October afternoon, they received an invitation to a mysterious retreat deep within the Blackwood Forest. The letter, sealed with dark wax, promised an unforgettable experience beyond the realm of men. It bore no return address, signed only as the Keeper of the Deep. Curiosity took hold, and they couldn't resist. Soon, they were driving far from civilization, winding through misty roads until surrounded by towering, twisted trees. The forest felt alive, shadows shifting, tree trunks bending in unnatural ways. At last, they arrived at a grand yet dilapidated lodge, standing solitary and ominous. "This is it?" David murmured, feeling a prickle of unease. Emma clutched the letter tightly, nodding. The wind whistled through the clearing, carrying with it a chill that seemed to seep into their bones. None of them noticed the shadow lurking at one of the windows, watching them with piercing, unseen eyes. As they approached, the door creaked open to reveal an elderly man with a face as furrowed as the forest's bark and eyes that seemed to see straight through them. "Welcome," he greeted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I am the Keeper of the Deep. Please, make yourselves at home." The keeper led them inside, revealing a lodge filled with strange, antiquated furniture and peculiar artifacts. Odd masks and grim statues adorned the walls, their expressions twisted in terror or blank serenity. Each artifact seemed to watch them, filling the room with an uneasy quiet. At dinner, the keeper's voice echoed in the candle-lit room. "You may hear voices at night," he said softly, his eyes never leaving theirs. "But heed my warning, do not listen. The voices lie." That night, David, Emma, and Olivia lay in their rooms, the warning repeating in their minds. Then, as the night deepened, faint whispers began drifting through the hallways, blending with the wind, calling out their names. In the dead of night, David awoke to a soft scratching at his door. Heart pounding, he tiptoed to the door, barely opening it to find a figure at the end of the darkened hallway, eyes glowing faintly in the dimness. "David," it whispered in a voice like dead leaves rustling in the wind. "Come closer." Just as he felt himself inching forward, a hand grabbed his shoulder. It was Emma, her face drained of color. "David, what are you doing?" she asked, voice trembling. Startled, he looked back down the hall, but the figure was gone. Silence returned, chilling in its suddenness. The two of them returned to their rooms, shaken. But Olivia was nowhere to be found. When she finally appeared at breakfast, her usual spark was gone, replaced by a haunted look. She sat quietly, her eyes dark and distant, as if something had left a permanent mark on her soul. Disturbed by the night's events, they spent the next day exploring the lodge, hoping to uncover the truth behind the voices and strange happenings. In a dusty basement room, they found a leather-bound book, filled with cryptic symbols and foreboding text. It spoke of previous visitors who had vanished without a trace, each one lured by voices promising them secrets or escape. On one page, a handwritten warning read, "Those who enter the deep must never answer its call. Here, the voices will tempt you, and the forest will consume those who falter." Olivia's gaze was fixed on the book, her fingers tracing the symbols as if mesmerized. "The voices, they aren't evil," she muttered. "They just want to be heard." David and Emma exchanged a worried look, the hairs on their necks standing as they listened to Olivia's eerie fascination with the whispers. They tried to shake her out of it, but her demeanor grew darker and more detached as the day wore on. That night, the whispers returned, louder and closer, filling the air with an almost physical weight. Each of them found themselves drawn to the sound, unable to resist its pull. Desperate to escape, David and Emma insisted they leave. But the forest around them had changed, twisting and shifting until there seemed to be no way out. Olivia, entranced, wandered further into the trees, her face blank and her steps unsteady. "Olivia!" David called, his voice breaking through the heavy silence, but she didn't look back. As they chased her deeper into the woods, they noticed shadowy figures moving between the trees, eyes watching them from the darkness. With every step, they could feel the ground pulsing as though alive, the earth breathing with a rhythm of its own. Suddenly, Olivia stopped, her eyes wide with terror. She turned to them, her face pale. "They're here," she whispered, gesturing to the dark figures surrounding them. "They're waiting." The trio was surrounded. Shadows closed in, circling like vultures, their hollow eyes watching with a hunger that spoke of ages past. In a last effort to find refuge, they fled back to the lodge. Inside, they found the keeper waiting in the main hall, his expression serene as if expecting them. "Didn't I warn you?" he said softly, a strange gleam in his eye. "The deep holds all who enter. You were drawn here because it sensed your hunger for adventure, but it has its own price." David demanded an explanation, but the keeper merely smiled, his face shadowed. "I am a servant of the deep," he intoned. "It has claimed countless souls who wander in search of answers. You are bound to it now, as I am." Realization dawned too late. The keeper's task was never to protect them, but to feed the forest, its insatiable hunger for life, for souls lost to curiosity and terror. In a final, desperate attempt to escape, they scattered, but the lodge transformed, twisting around them into a labyrinth of endless halls and shadowy rooms. David found himself back in his childhood home, its familiar walls decayed and filled with silent, watchful shadows. Emma wandered into a mirrored room, where every reflection was a twisted, aged version of herself, as if drained of life. As for Olivia, she returned to the basement, her face expressionless as she muttered to herself. She was lost to the deep, her mind no longer her own.